When you tilt your head back inside the Sistine Chapel, you are instantly hit with an overwhelming wall of visual noise. It is a masterpiece of chaos, packed with writhing bodies, wrathful angels, and sharp bursts of color. But if you drag your eyes away from the majestic figures at the center of the Last Judgment fresco, down to the lower right side, the tone changes. You find something entirely different, something morbid. Sitting on a cloud is the apostle Bartholomew. He is muscular, heavily bearded, and in his left hand he holds a flaying knife. In his right, he grips something much worse, a deflated human skin, dangling like a discarded winter coat. Tradition holds that Bartholomew was skinned alive, making this a gruesome tribute. But look closely at the face melting off that empty husk. It doesn't belong to the apostle. Those sunken, ravaged features form an undeniable self-portrait of the artist himself, Michelangelo, which raises a strange question. Why would the greatest genius of the Renaissance choose to project his own face onto the hollowed-out remains of Christianity's most silent, forgotten apostle? History usually remembers the loud ones. Peter gives massive, defiant speeches. Paul writes sweeping letters that shape global theology. But Bartholomew is a total blank space in the biblical text. He speaks no lines. He takes no recorded actions. Even his name is a dead end. Bartholomew comes from the Aramaic Bar-Tolmai, which translates literally to Tolmai's boy. It is a patronymic, a surname telling us who his father was, leaving the man himself entirely anonymous. A thread of scholarship dating back to the 9th century suggests this forgotten apostle lived a double life in the texts. In the Gospel of John, there is no Bartholomew, but there is a man named Nathanael, and in every historical list, both men are introduced by and paired with the exact same friend, Philip. When you combine the surname Bartholomew with the given name Nathanael, the ghost gets a face. We go from an anonymous extra on a list to a specific character with a radical psychology. We first meet Nathanael sitting in absolute solitude under a fig tree in the rural Galilean landscape. When his friend Philip runs up to announce they have finally found the Messiah in Jesus of Nazareth, Nathanael responds with dry, sarcastic skepticism. Can any good thing come out of Nazareth? But when Jesus sees this skeptical man approaching, he delivers an immediate psychological assessment. Before they even speak, Jesus calls him an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. To understand what that means, you have to look at the environment. First-century Galilee was a society under military occupation. Survival required performing. You wore political masks to appease Roman occupiers. You bartered carefully in the marketplace, and you navigated complex religious expectations. Everyone had an angle. Against that backdrop of constant performance, Bartholomew possessed a rare transparency. He had no hidden calculus, no alternate agenda. What you saw was exactly what he was. That lack of guile made him the supporting actor for the next 3 years. He didn't demand the spotlight or jockey for position, proving that historical influence often relies heavily on those who faithfully exist in the background. Jerusalem, he embarks on a geographic expansion. The historical breadcrumbs place him in India, across Mesopotamia, into Persia, and through the regions of Phrygia. But his final trajectory pulls him north. He travels through the Caucasus Mountains and lands in a rugged, fiercely independent kingdom, Armenia. Through quiet, grassroots evangelism, Bartholomew planted specific theological seeds in those mountains. They took root so deeply that in 301 CE, Armenia officially adopted the faith, becoming the first Christian nation on earth. Consider that paradox. A man who never spoke a single recorded word after the opening pages of the Gospels forged the permanent religious identity of an entire civilization. Of course, threatening the power structures of the ancient world rarely ends peacefully. Bartholomew's missionary work meets a violent end when he successfully converts the brother of a local king. The execution ordered by the king was horrifyingly specific. Bartholomew was strapped down to a table and systematically flayed, skinned alive by his captors. Psychologists study a concept called disconfirmation under pressure. It is the fact that when humans are placed under extreme duress, they will rapidly abandon beliefs that are weak, performative or held simply for social advantage. But a man devoid of guile has no performance to abandon. When faced with the knife, Bartholomew didn't recant. Because he had no hidden agenda to fall back on, his identity didn't break, it calcified. The brutal flaying did not strip away his faith. Instead, it showed that his beliefs were never an external coat he could take off. They were the constitutive core of who he was. Which brings us back to Renaissance Rome and to Michelangelo. By the time he was painting The Last Judgment, he was an aging, exhausted artist. He had spent his life navigating the constant political maneuvering and ambition of the church elite. Michelangelo placed his own features on that flayed skin as a confession. By 1541, he was an aging man looking for the same spiritual transparency he saw in the quietest apostle. This skin is a record of being stripped of ego and worldly defense. It shows what remains when the performance is peeled back, leaving only the raw musculature of identity. Peter and Paul left us a documented history filled with public triumphs and dramatic confrontations. History builds monuments to the prominent speakers, but the world is sustained by the quiet, guileless individuals who simply hold the line. Ptolemy's boy changed the map of the ancient world without ever needing a spotlight.
And now you know the story behind the song, Bartholomew, To Just Be.
Be sure to visit CaptivationCompany.com for more Apostle learning experiences. Listen to all of the Apostle songs at apostlesalbum.online.
And be sure to get our latest book about the apostles at apostlesbook.online.